Welcome back to our RBD Building Block series. I am Cindy Cloward, and today is the day we are finishing our quilt. If you've been following along and sewing along with us, we made 9 basic blocks, and now we're ready to put them into a quilt. So you can see that I've already sewn these 6 blocks together, and we just have 3 remaining blocks to form the center of our quilt. The first thing you're going to need to do is download the finishing pattern on the Riley Blake Designs website. It gives you all the instructions for the assembly of the quilt, as well as the sashing and the border around the quilt. So let's get started. We're going to work on the sashing first. It's what connects the 3 blocks in a row. You can see these 6 blocks has the sashing in between. So you grab your sashing piece, find the right sides together, and put it right sides together, and pin top and bottom. So I'm going to chain piece these 2, and then we'll sew them together. Okay, let's bring them back. And then we're going to sew this side onto this. Give it a quick pin. And then I'm just going to save time by pinning this last block on the outside. Okay, we've got those 3 blocks sewn together with sashing. I'm going to give them a quick press. Just give them a little spritz of water. First we'll set the seams. Let's see. There we go. That's lined up. You want to see that you haven't sewn into your points right there, so that looks good. I'm going to just give a quick press there. So now that these 3 blocks have their sashing that ties them all together, we need to put these 3 blocks to the rest of the quilt. And you do that by this long sashing piece. So you can see how you normally assemble this is these 3 blocks, sashing, these 3 blocks, sashing, and this. I kind of cheated where I have already put the top and partially done the side borders to save time on the camera. So we're going to put this bottom piece on to that B sashing. And when you do this, the goal of this is to have one continuous piece of sashing, even though you've assembled it in sections. So how you accomplish that is when you flip it right sides together, you have to make sure that kind of lines up with that. So it'll look like one continuous unit. So that's the first part that I pin. So I pull it down here like that, grab my pins. I love this new magnetic pin flower. Look at that, isn't that great? It's a Lori Holt pin flower and I just love it. It's brand new. Okay, we're gonna line this up just like that. And again, that's the first thing I pin. And then I do pin a lot the rest of the sections. So like I said, I kind of cheated and partially sewed this on. But you're gonna have to, and if one block feels a little bit smaller, that's okay. You're just gonna tug it to get it into place. Now, if it was inches smaller, then you'd kind of be in trouble. But since this one is just a little bit smaller, I'm just gonna give it a little tug right there to fit in that space, okay? So you just kind of give it a tug like that, find that center section, line it up, and when you're sewing, you're just gonna kind of give it a tug so it all sews together and you're not gonna have any areas that are short or get a piece is too long. You're just gonna give it a tug to pull it all in alignment. There we go. Okay. We're gonna take this to the machine and sew across, and then we'll put on our outside and bottom borders. Okay, so we're going to take a look at that before we give it a press. And I like how that's lined up, so let's give it a quick press. Press as you go. You'll be grateful you did. And then we're gonna gets a little bulky at this point. And if you start seeing threads as you press, it's a good time to just grab your snips and trim them off. Otherwise, they just seem to grow if you let them just sit there. Okay, generally, as a general rule, you do your outside borders before you do your top and bottom. Like I said, I kind of cheated and put on my outside borders partially to save time, and I already put the border on the top. So I'm going to unpin this. Right sides together, we're going to finish this side border. It's just a general rule that you do side borders and then your top and bottom borders. Okay, that side border is done. Let's do the other side. Okay, let's sew these two outside borders on. Okay, let's take a look. It's looking good. I am going to give that a press Open that up. Do that last. Let's do it over here. Since I already previously pressed the other side up top, we're just going to put that right there. Okay. Now I put these two borders on, but I wasn't real specific of how to do it. So let me tell you, as I'm putting the final border on, how you do your borders. Now you always want, luckily this piece is one width of fabric border, and you just fold it in half and find the very center. Sometimes you have to piece your border pieces, so you're gonna have a longer piece of border. Just make sure you find the center and give it a nice good press. This is my center, and then you go right sides together to the center of your quilt, your pieced quilt. So this is the center of my pieced quilt, and that's where you do your first pin. I do my first pin there, and then you're gonna pull the border to the outside edge and pin it on the outside, on both sides. This is how I do my borders. Maybe you do it a little differently, but it kind of squares up, trues up your quilt. And then you give it a little tug, and then I kind of do center again, pin, pin. So I pin it really well when I'm doing my borders, so there's no gaps and everything is lined up. So let's go sew this and then we'll come back. Okay, with that border on, I give it a nice spritz down there where you can steam. Just kind of set my seams, and then I open them up. And this is finished. By watching how you pin, you can really square up your quilt so it's all lined up and everything looks really good. But I have an extra challenge for you. If you're happy with it, this quilt, the size that it is, you're finished. Congratulations. But if you'd like to grow your quilt a little bit and you'd like it to have a little more maybe pizzazz, we have also included instructions on what this quilt looks like with more borders. We have added 3 more borders. So we've added this navy for an inner border, another white one border to frame it out with a wide border at the end. So here are the extra borders that you will need. Now these you're going to need longer than width of fabric, so you're going to have to seam them together. And I just do it right sides together, and sometimes I do open up my seams when I do borders, but you don't have to. You can leave them flipped to one side, that's perfectly fine. But these are the size borders you're going to need. Some of them I've already seamed. And again, that's turned to one side. It just makes a stronger border if you flip it to one side and not open up your seams. So I'm going to get started on these borders, and I'm going to meet you back here when mine's all finished. Let's take a look. I just put on the final border. Oh wow, I really like how this looks with the extra borders. Thank you for following along and sewing along with us. Whether you decide to make a quilt like this or a quilt like this, congratulations. We're always glad when you follow along and sew along with Riley Blake Designs.